Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast. Today is Thursday, April 16th, 2020. Today I'm going to talk about the latest news related to the coronavirus, and then I'm going to discuss the rumor of when the NFL schedule is going to come out, as well as my three TV shows I want to discuss from last night: Masked Singer, Lego Masters, and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. A Disney sing-along I want to discuss that's going on tonight, my latest NFL mock draft, and my 2018 NBA top 10 players and games. All right, we'll start with the coronavirus. I want to get to something that stood out to me is that there's optimism around the NBA season coming back and resuming. I think that is great news. And it was reported by Shams this morning, and Shams knows what he's doing. And it would be huge for sports to get NBA back, whether it's with fans or not, more likely the latter. And I wonder if they're going to do the hotspot in Vegas, which has been highly rumored over the last couple of weeks, or they'll do it in a variety of locations. And I guess those locations being the locations that are not heavy with people that have COVID-19. So you can rule out New York, you can rule out California, you could rule out New Jersey, you could rule out Washington State. Like, you could see it being in Arizona. Florida is becoming a hotter spot for coronavirus. So I wouldn't put Florida on that list. So maybe like the Suns Arena, you could do Vegas. Maybe you could do like the Denver Arena, the Utah Arena. And in terms of places out east, I do not see Philadelphia being an option because it's close to New York, and same with Boston. I could see Chicago being an option. I can see Charlotte being an option, or even Raleigh, if they turn the Hurricanes Arena into a basketball arena like they have for NC State and then for the NCAA tournament. I could see the Hawks Arena being a potential spot for makeup games in the NBA, or not only makeup regular season games, but obviously playoff games. So there's a lot of things in play right now in terms of option arenas for the NBA. Oh, and I would rule out Boston too, because that's apparently a heavy COVID city. I wonder if Portland, Oregon would be an interesting location. I would say they wouldn't use Portland because it's close to Washington. Maybe they could do, even though it's a little close to Boston, but convert the Dunkin' Donuts Center into an arena. That could potentially happen. There's nothing really special in South Carolina in terms of a place you can have basketball, NBA at least, unless if the Gamecocks or Clemson are willing to give up their arenas. But I just don't see them doing South Carolina because there's no real NBA arena or hockey arena that they can convert a basketball court onto. I could see Memphis being a spot, Nashville being a spot, St. Louis, if you're talking Midwest. Texas, things are better. So I wouldn't rule out Dallas being a spot, or Houston or San Antonio. So optimism around the NBA returning, so that is really good news, and I think that'll get a lot of people excited. And I think if the NBA does return, if I have a prediction for right now, I'm going to say the NBA returns by mid-June. Like June 15th, per se. I don't know what day of the week that is. Let's check. June 15th is a Monday. So that'd be kind of fun bringing back the NBA. Like maybe they could do a couple regular season games. Maybe like 10 each for everybody, or something like that. And then have scenarios of teams clinching the playoffs for those that didn't clinch playoff spots yet, like the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Dallas Mavericks, etc. And and go to the playoffs, and maybe they cut the playoffs a little bit and do like single game eliminations or best of 3, best of 5 or something like that, like something different. And if there was best of 3, best of 5, or even a single game, it would be a lot more entertaining because the magnitude of the game only grows. So there's a lot of intrigue around the possibilities the NBA could bring once it comes back. And then obviously the draft's going to get pushed back to like August, which is obviously the right thing to do. Mike Trout made some comments yesterday on the league's plan to go to Arizona and Florida. He and his wife are obviously expecting, I discussed that on my show, a baby boy. And I think they're due this summer. And Trout's against the idea, and I don't blame him for being against it because of his wife expecting, and you never know. He obviously has to be there for his wife, assuming things are back to normal by the time she gets birth, and he would be possibly back allowed in the, or men would be allowed back in the rooms when women deliver babies, because obviously that's a rule right now. Like, no one's allowed to be in the room when women are giving birth. So Trout's against the Arizona plan, and a lot of people are, because there's a lot of risk involving in this. And in the league, obviously federal health officials are behind it, and I discussed that a few days ago, and Jeff Passan broke the story, and how huge that is that they'd be getting tested every week. And if somebody would test positive, I don't know if they would shut down the league altogether, or if that person would be put on the injured list for a couple days or weeks to recover. So hopefully coronavirus is like mostly gone by the time sports are back. And one more thing related to COVID that I want to talk about is that the mayors of Los Angeles and New York City, Bill de Blasio in New York and Eric Garcetti in Los Angeles, are very pessimistic about sports returning. I think that Garcetti is being very, very pessimistic, and I think he's overreacting a little bit. And he said that he thinks that sports shouldn't come back until 2021. I think that's a little much. We just have to wait and see where things are by then. And de Blasio is pessimistic as well. And he's obviously the mayor of New York City. And he doesn't think we'll see sports for months. Meanwhile, Cuomo, the governor of New York, is very optimistic. He spoke with Jeff Wilpon, and they think they're actually going to play. So Cuomo is a little bit more optimistic about this, surprisingly a little bit, in my opinion, than de Blasio and LA Mayor Eric Garcetti. And then the California governor is very, very strict and is very against big events being in the state of California for a long time, and as is de Blasio with New York City. So obviously we have to wait and see, hope that the cases and the deaths go down and people continue to follow the rules. Alrighty. The NFL schedule is scheduled to release on May 9th. I actually like that they waited to release the schedule, COVID-19 or not, due to the fact that every year you see the league schedule games based on predictions that they think would happen in the draft. Like, for example, they put the Browns in primetime a lot in years where they thought that they were going to draft the quarterback. Or the year that the Titans had the top pick, and there's all those rumors that that Philly were moving up to take Mariota. Oh, Philly was supposed to be good that year anyway. and then Tennessee wound up taking Mariota, and they put on national games for both those teams a lot. I mean, regardless of who that quarterback would have been for Philly, although many people thought they were going to trade up and take Mariota because of his ties with Chip Kelly at the time. A lot of people thought that Eagles team wasn't going to a lot of games on national TV, and they were, on paper, the team to beat before that season by many folks, and then they wound up being a complete bust, missed the playoffs, and Chip Kelly lost his job because of it. So, the NFL schedule coming out after the draft, I think, is better for the league, and the NHL releases its schedule before the draft, but they don't pick their nationally televised games for the most part until after the draft. So that is like one thing that the NHL does, but at the same time it's kind of easy to figure out what games are going to be on national TV and not because of the time slots on the time of the games. And then the NBA waits till after the draft. Major League Baseball, obviously their draft is the biggest crapshoot, in my opinion, in all of sports. And they obviously do their schedules before the end of the season. So I like that the NFL is waiting till after the draft. They're doing it in the NBA style for once, but it had to take until COVID-19 for them to do it. So they'll know, like, who's drafted where, and where's Tua, and where's Burrow. And say the Bengals, of course, take Burrow, which is the consensus, and feels like a lock at this point. Maybe the Bengals get a couple extra primetime games because they know that Joe Burrow's there. So instead of them speculating and predicting which young players are going to be drafted where, they'd put the team in prime time because they would at the time think that they'd be drafting a certain quarterback or a certain star player that would make that team primetime worthy. So I like that they are waiting until after the draft to do this. All right, now I want to discuss The Masked Singer from last night. It was a sing-along episode where they showed 2 old performances from the season with the 7 contestants that are left remaining. Turtle talked about some of his experiences on the show and talked about clues that people stood out, like the comic book and the surfboard. They re-aired him performing Kiss from a Rose, and then later on in the show, There's Nothing Holding Me Back. My guess for Turtle is still AJ McLean, although it could be Joey McIntyre, it could be Donnie Wahlberg, it could be somebody else from a boy band that we're not thinking of, like Brian Luttrell. So, Turtle's obviously very interesting, but I'm going to stick with AJ McLean. The Banana talks about his experience on the show and the hints that stood out to the fans, such as the blowfishes, the collar, and the mullet. They re-aired his performances of Sweet Home Alabama and Lean on Me. I still think the Banana is Kid Rock from the vocals and from some of the clues. Sweet Home Alabama is a funny song. If this is Kid Rock, it'd be hilarious if it was, because Sweet Home Alabama, he pretty much came out with that song all summer long that has like the same beat as Sweet Home Alabama and like the same background music, except it's a little bit faster than Sweet Home Alabama. And those two songs are very, very reminiscent of one another. So imagine that storyline. I think the Banana is like the most unpredictable of the remaining 7. Although a lot of them are unpredictable, but I think this is the most unpredictable one. I at one point thought this was Howard Stern, but Bananas, one of his hints was that he was funny but not stand-up funny, and I feel that Howard Stern is stand-up funny. So I changed my guess to Kid Rock because of the vocals, but I don't feel strong about it whatsoever. The Kitty, I think, is really, really good. You could make a case that she's the best of the remaining contestants. The performances that they chose to re-air were Dangerous Woman and It's All Coming Back to Me Now. And It's All Coming Back to Me Now was, I think, Kitty's best performance of the whole season and arguably the best performance of season 3 to this day. Some of the hints that she talked about were the Dueling Pirates, The Tree, and the Coat. I still think that this is Kristen Chenoweth of Wicked from the vocals, and there's a hint that obviously stood out, which she mentioned last night, of the tree, and I'm referring to the tree as the tree from last season, which was Anna Gasteyer, who was in Wicked. Kristen Chenoweth was also a part of Wicked. And someone else that was a part of Wicked is Idina Menzel. If Kitty's Idina Menzel, that would be a big get for Fox because she's big right now. Frozen 2, Into the Unknown. So, like, Idina Menzel is riding high right now, so that'd be huge if they landed her on the show, but I'm still going to guess Kristen Chenoweth. The Frog, they re-aired Can't Touch This and Jump. He talked about some of the clues that stood out, like the puppies and the night. I still think it's Alfonso Ribeiro from the vocal standpoint, but clue standpoint, it could very well be Bow Wow. Personality standpoint, it could very well be Kevin Hart. So I think those are 3 realistic options for Frog, whether it's Kevin Hart, Bow Wow, or Alfonso Ribeiro. The Astronaut, they re-aired Shape of You and Signed, Sealed, Delivered. A couple of the hints that he talked about were the consolation flag, the broken record, and the die. And the guess that I still have is Jesse McCartney from the vocals. Astronaut's interesting. I think Astronaut has a shot to win it all. There's a lot of boy band guesses for Astronaut too, and I think Astronaut and Turtle, even though the contestants don't know who each other are, seem like they are close because they've been getting similar guesses. There's Kevin Jonas speculation about the Astronaut and about the Turtle, so I could see why Astronaut and Turtle seem to be attached to the hip at the show. And then Night Angel talks about the standout hints of the tricycle, the bumblebee, and the globe, and the broken heart. They re-aired 2 of her performances, Man, I Feel Like a Woman, and Shout. I still think it's Kelly Rowland based on the vocals, and then of an obvious hint back a few weeks ago was something about You Are My Destiny, Destiny's Child. So you never know. I could be wrong. And then the Rhino I feel the best about. Actually, no, I feel really good about the Turtle too, but the Rhino's the one I feel the best about. There's a lot of religious hints, like the faith sign, and then there's the ring. And this athlete was a national champion at Florida, and I think that is Tim Tebow. And the 2 songs that they re-aired were The Nice to Meet You and Tracks of My Tears. From the vocals, it does sound like Tim Tebow, but when he's in his disguised voice when he speaks to the judges, it sounds like Peyton Manning. But I do think that this is indeed former Bronco and Jet quarterback and current New York Mets minor league baseball player Tim Tebow. And at the end, the Unmasked Singers sang bits and pieces of Time of My Life by from that movie from the 80s. I'm blanking on the name of it. The song is by Bill Medley and Jennifer Warnes. Oh, Dirty Dancing. That's it. And you obviously saw Lil Wayne, and you saw Tom Bergeron, you saw Bella Thorne, Dionne Warwick, Chaka Khan, Sarah Palin, JoJo Siwa, Tony Hawk, Jordan Woods. You saw all 9 of them, and then the 2 others that were unmasked, Drew Carey, and then Gronk. Duh, how could I forget about Gronk? So those 11 at the end performed Time of My Life, but they had bits and pieces of each character performing it. And one thing I want to talk about before I move on to the Lego Masters finale, for the previews for next week's show, it seems like somebody's getting unmasked. And it's the final SmackDown of the season. And those 4 that didn't perform 2 weeks ago. So Frog, Kitty, Rhino, and Banana all perform. And 2 of them are in the SmackDown. And then somebody gets voted off at the end, the loser of the SmackDown. So I wonder if next week's episode is going to be the last one in terms of an unmasking before a huge break. I thought that was the case for yesterday's episode, but it looks like I'm wrong here. So we'll talk about this more on Wednesday before the show. Alrighty, so the Lego Masters finale, good episode. I thought that all 3 teams had excellent builds. Will Arnett, I think, did a good job. I love the idea that he brought out their families and the former contestants on the show to see the announcement of the winner of the show. I thought that was really cool. And then they brought out the families midway through the episode. They paused them, and then he said, I got a surprise, and he brought out the families. A moment that really stood out to me was that Tyler and Amy, they're expecting. Maybe they had their baby by now, but at the time they were expecting, and they told the family while they came out and said hello to them, and that's when Tyler and Amy made the announcement to their family, and that must have meant a lot to them, getting it on the Lego Masters show. And they told the people from the Lego Masters before the families came out, like they told the other 2 contestants, and they told Will Arnett and the other 2 judges, so they all knew before Tyler and Amy's family. And the irony is that I actually felt a few weeks ago just watching it and kind of had an idea that Amy was pregnant. Like, it just looked like it for me. And then I happened to be right. Because the thing is, you never know with pregnant women, and you could, whether they are actually pregnant or not, and whether they look like it or they actually are or not. So you got to be careful with that. But I turned out to be right about Amy. And speaking of Tyler and Amy, they made a build of a Treasure of Griffin, and that was like the theme of their build, was like being protective, and obviously they're having a baby, so they wanted to like protect the Griffin. I wonder if that's what they plan on naming their baby. That's what I think they should name their baby if it's indeed a boy. And it's like a tree house, and it came out really, really good. Sam and Jessica made a peacock and a monkey, and the peacock came out blue. It was really pretty. And then there was like a monkey just sitting there hanging out. That came out cute. And then Mark and Boone called their build Artopia, which is like a town, and it was all colorful and cute. Well, they initially called it the Tower of Creativity, but the tower was a part of the town, so they just called it Artopia, and they made it all different colors. It was very colorful and cute, so I liked them all. And lo and behold, they announced the 3rd place winner, and then that turned out to be Sam and Jessica, who I thought came a long way from the start of the show. They were obviously in the bottom 2 the first 2 weeks, and then they made it to the top 3 into the final, so good on them. And then the winner wound up being Tyler and Amy. They deserved it, $100,000. Their Treasure of the Griffin piece is going to be in the Lego store in New York City, so that is really, really cool for them, and they deserve the money as well. They were the best team all year. I thought they had the most creative build last night as well as the other two were. I just thought that Tyler and Amy's came out the best, as they always would. And then Mark and Boone obviously were the runners-up, but they were a very worthy second place, in my opinion, on the show. And I think Lego Masters obviously got this right, and I'm looking forward to another season of this, because it really did turn out to be a hit show on Fox that a lot of people really liked, especially younger kids. Alrighty, now I want to talk about last night's episode of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Good episode. Jimmy Kimmel obviously doing his thing, and he continued on Will Forte from last week, who is obviously raising charity money for the Pangaea Network, which helps out women in Kenya and in the United States. Reb Forte, his father, was his help, and he phoned a friend for the $16,000 question and wound up getting that question correct. And then he made it up to the $64,000 question, but wound up getting that incorrect, as it was a cooking-related question. So he wound up getting that wrong. He goes home with $32,000 for his charity. And then comes on Nikki Glazer, who I thought was absolutely crazy. She brings in Dr. Drew for help. And Dr. Drew obviously is friends with Jimmy Kimmel, so that's kind of a cute storyline there. So Nikki Glazer last night made millionaire history by changing her answer. She said final answer for something that she didn't mean to say final answer for, and then they went to break, and then they came back, and it was a movie-related question, and the answer wound up being 1917, and she felt in her bones that 1917 was the answer, so they let her change the answer, and she wound up getting it correct. And then the last question of the episode was about driving from, or walking from San Antonio, Texas up north. Which state wouldn't you go through? And the options were Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado, and North Dakota. And then she used her 50-50 lifeline, and then she didn't feel good about it, and she selected Colorado. That turned out to be correct. I thought that was a very easy question. I'm surprised that she struggled so much with that question, and Dr. Drew helped her as well, and he wasn't even sure. And that's crazy to me that Nikki Glazer didn't get that one right off the bat. So I believe she left off at like the $16,000 mark. So she'll be back on next week to finish her quest for $1 million. Alrighty, now I'm going to discuss a very cute show that is going to be on tonight on Channel 7, hosted by Ryan Seacrest, the Disney Family Sing-Along. Celebrities and their families take on their favorite Disney tunes from their homes, so it's another at-home concert. Christina Aguilera is going to be in it. Erin Andrews, I think, will be helping Ryan Seacrest out with hosting, unless if she's like a part of it, the singing. That'd be pretty neat. And then Bobby Bones is a part of it. Ariana Grande. Kristen Chenoweth, ironically enough. Talking about her with The Masked Singer before. And a lot of other celebrities. I think Justin Timberlake might be in it as well. So I'm interested to see what songs they all choose to sing. Obviously, Disney has a lot of great songs. That might be a countdown of mine in the future, doing my top 10 Disney songs of all time. That would be a very fun list. There's a lot of good Disney songs, and I probably have a lot of honorable mentions. So I like this idea by ABC. Ryan Seacrest couldn't have been a better choice for a host. I think Ryan Seacrest is the best in the business in terms of people from ABC. So they got the right host in my mind for this. And I like the celebrity lineup as well. So we'll recap this on tomorrow's show. Now I'm going to do my latest NFL mock draft. It's my 7th version of it. A lot of the theme of this one is a lot of same picks as previous mock drafts, and obviously it's what I've been hearing of late in terms of every team and who they could possibly select. So without further ado, here we go. Number 1, Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow, quarterback, LSU. After what was a breakout season which led to a Heisman Trophy, Burrow emerged as a favorite to go first overall in this upcoming draft. The Bengals want to move on from Andy Dalton and start fresh here with Burrow, whose second-year coach Zach Taylor could help develop into the franchise quarterback the team is looking for. 2, Washington Redskins, Chase Young, defensive end, Ohio State. Young is the best player in this draft, and he falls one spot due to the Bengals' quarterback need. The Redskins need a lot of young talent on both sides of the ball, and Young would have an immediate impact in the league, chasing the likes of Dak Prescott, Carson Wentz, and Daniel Jones twice a season. 3, Detroit Lions, Jeff Okudah, cornerback, Ohio State. This is an interesting spot because this is a spot where someone could trade up for a quarterback and the Lions can get a nice haul back. The Lions are a team that are in dire need of secondary help after the trading of Darius Slay, and Okudah is the best defensive back in the draft, although you could argue they should take Derek Brown of Auburn here due to their need of interior help on the defensive line. 4, New York Giants, Isaiah Simmons, linebacker, defensive back, Clemson. Word is out that the Giants love Simmons, and what we learned from the past 2 drafts, that the Giants are not good at pulling off smoke screens, stands rumors that they will take a tackle to protect Daniel Jones. Smoke screen or not, this is the logical pick for Big Blue at this spot, who need somebody like Simmons on their defense who could pretty much do everything. 5, Miami Dolphins, Justin Herbert, Oregon, quarterback. There's always a saying, when there's smoke, there's fire. That feels like the case here as the Dolphins pass on Tua Tagovailoa for Herbert due to health concerns of Tua, who they loved a year ago. Herbert could have declared last season, but stayed at school one more season to try to improve his stock. But I feel that he would have been a first-round pick last year, too. 6, Los Angeles Chargers, Tua Tagovailoa, quarterback, Alabama. The Chargers take their chance and select Tagovailoa after the Dolphins select Herbert. Tua was the consensus number 1 overall pick and prospect in this draft before his hip fracture in November, and if he proves to stay healthy and is the same guy he was before the injuries, the Chargers land themselves a franchise guy. 7, Carolina Panthers, Derek Brown, defensive tackle, Auburn. The Panthers once had a great defense, but now it looks like a unit that needs reinforcements. Brown is somebody who's rare for his size, but always was a steady player in college and would be a nice building block in Matt Rule's first draft. 8, Arizona Cardinals, Tristan Wirfs, offensive tackle, Iowa. With the Cardinals acquiring DeAndre Hopkins, they turn their focus onto the offensive line where they select Wirfs. He's somebody who can come in and play right away, helping Kyler Murray stay upright. 9, Jacksonville Jaguars, Jedrick Wills, offensive tackle, Alabama. There are options here for the Jaguars with this selection, whether it's improving the offensive or defensive line, the secondary, a receiver, or perhaps even a quarterback. Wills is somebody that can go as high as 4th to the Giants due to his blocking ability and would help keep whomever the Jags quarterback is upright. 10, Cleveland Browns, Mekhi Becton, offensive tackle, Louisville. The Browns have a need at the opposite tackle position of Jack Conklin, and they snag Becton here. Becton is somebody that has tremendous upside but has some technique flaws, which many teams have felt that that's weary. 11, New York Jets, Henry Ruggs III, wide receiver, Alabama. Ruggs' stock has absolutely risen of late to the point he could be the first receiver off the board in the draft with how loaded this position is, and there's rumors out there that the Jets love him. Ruggs is the exact type of player that Sam Darnold needs, who can run a solid route and is fast and clean. 12, Las Vegas Raiders, Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver, Alabama. John Gruden is doing backflips as Jeudy falls into his lap. He is a fantastic route runner, and many folks have drawn comparisons to Calvin Johnson due to his tremendous upside. He'd certainly turn into Derek Carr's top option. 13, San Francisco 49ers from the Indianapolis Colts. CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver, Oklahoma. With Emmanuel Sanders off in free agency, the Niners suddenly have a need at wide receiver. Lamb is somebody with high upside that has great hands, body control, and is a solid route runner, which will help Jimmy Garoppolo. 14, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Andrew Thomas, offensive tackle, Georgia. Thomas was somebody I had high as 4th overall in this mock draft a few weeks ago, but his stock has dropped a little bit due possibly to a flaw that he has of footwork. This would be a win for Tom Brady and the Bucs regardless because they need to get a much-needed protection. 15, Denver Broncos. C.J. Henderson, cornerback, Florida. There's a lot of buzz that Henderson can go in the top 10, maybe as high as 9th to Jacksonville. The Broncos snagged the talented corner here to replace the departed Chris Harris Jr., and Henderson could start for them right away. 16, Atlanta Falcons. Javon Kinlaw, defensive lineman, South Carolina. With Henderson off the board, the Falcons snag Kinlaw, who could be a steal here if teams pass on him, which I have here. He's somebody that is versatile and would help to Karis McKinley, Gardy Jarrett, and new addition Dante Fowler on that defensive line. 17, Dallas Cowboys. Kristen Fulton, cornerback, LSU. The Cowboys have options here as they must depart free agents Byron Jones and Robert Quinn. Here I have them replacing Jones with Fulton, who has great size, athleticism, and is very clean with the way he plays the game. 18, Miami Dolphins from the Pittsburgh Steelers. K'Lavon Chaisson, defensive end, LSU. Chaisson falls here due to the Dolphins, and this would be a solid selection here. Chaisson is someone who is raw, but was a sack machine in college. 19, Las Vegas Raiders from the Chicago Bears. Jeff Gladney, cornerback, TCU. Gladney is a super fast riser as we approach the draft in a week from now as the Raiders surprise people here and snag Gladney. I feel this pick would be a major reach, but he is somebody that has the tools to have success in the league. 20, Jacksonville Jaguars from the Los Angeles Rams. Grant Delpit, safety, LSU. The Jaguars, with their second first-rounder, improved their secondary by selecting the talented safety in Delpit. Delpit is someone that is arguably the most talented safety in this draft class and would be a solid building block for the Jags going forward. 21, Philadelphia Eagles. Justin Jefferson, wide receiver, LSU. The two biggest needs for the Eagles this offseason were cornerback and wide receiver. With Darius Slay coming in to fill the need at corner, they looked to receiver and take the former LSU standout who showed off his ability to make big plays throughout the season. 22, Minnesota Vikings from the Buffalo Bills. Noah Ibngoe, cornerback, Auburn. Ibngoe is someone else that is a fast riser as the draft approaches. I also feel this would be a reach of a selection, although Ibngoe has great flexibility and movement skills. 23, New England Patriots. Jordan Love, quarterback, Utah State. With Tom Brady off to the Buccaneers, the quarterbacks on the Pats roster are Jarrett Stidham and Brian Hoyer. Now is the time to look to the future, and Love is someone that is very raw and has high upside. 24, New Orleans Saints. Brandon Ayuk, wide receiver, Arizona State. The Saints are another team that has options with their selection. Ayuk is a receiver that is gaining a ton of traction of late, and he would be a nice piece in that offense for Drew Brees to throw passes to, along with Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. 25, Minnesota Vikings. A.J. Epineza, defensive end, Iowa. The Vikings have a ton of options with their first round picks, and here I have them replacing free agent Everson Griffin with Epineza. Epineza is somebody that had good moments in college, and due to his great length and athleticism, this would be a fine selection by the Vikes, and add the fact that he is versatile too. 26, Miami Dolphins from the Houston Texans. DeAndre Swift, running back, Georgia. The Dolphins have some options with this selection, and here I have them taking the talented back. Swift is someone that will come in and be an upgrade over what they currently have, and assuming they do address their offensive line with other selections, Swift could really help this offense with his speed and catching ability out of the backfield. 27, Seattle Seahawks. Yetur Gross-Matos, defensive end, Penn State. Gross-Matos' stock has dropped after being projected to be in the top 15. The Seahawks have a pass rush need, assuming they don't bring back Jadeveon Clowney, and Gross-Matos would help the cause with his good length and speed. 28, Baltimore Ravens. Patrick Queen, linebacker, LSU. Queen is one of the rapid risers of late in many people's mock drafts. The Ravens' biggest need is at the linebacker position, and Queen will certainly help the cause with his ability to play 3 downs as well as his speed, although he's undersized. 29, Tennessee Titans. Urza Cleveland, offensive tackle, Boise State. Cleveland is someone that has a fast riser of late as the draft gets closer. especially with rumors that the Browns may trade down and select him. The Titans have a need at tackle as Jack Conklin departed in free agency, and Cleveland is someone that is built like a lineman that could succeed in the league today. 30, Green Bay Packers. Jalen Reagor, wide receiver, TCU. The Packers have their choice of talented receivers to choose from, assuming this is the direction they go. Reagor is somebody that can come in and put numbers up with Aaron Rodgers throwing him passes. 30, San Francisco 49ers. Ross Blacklock, defensive tackle, TCU. With their second first rounder, I have the Niners replacing DeForest Buckner with the fast-rising interior defensive lineman. Blacklock is someone that can come in and have an impact right away. 32, Kansas City Chiefs. Trevon Diggs, cornerback, Alabama. Diggs, for one reason or another, stock is dropping. I feel that he can have an impact in the league immediately and start for the reigning champions due to his physicality and imposing length. All right, so that's my latest mock draft. Maybe tomorrow I'll do a what teams should do version of the mock draft if I have some time at the later end of the show. All right, now I'm going to do my NBA top 10 players of the calendar year 2018. Honorable mentions: Paul George, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, Draymond Green, Kawhi Leonard, Jimmy Butler, Damian Lillard, and CJ McCollum. All right, without further ado, my top 10 NBA players of 2018. Number 10, Klay Thompson, helping the Warriors to their third championship in a 4-year span. Awesome wing defender, obviously, three-point shooter, and is somebody that is capable of carrying a team, as he was the third option on the Warriors, which is nuts. 9th, Russell Westbrook, Oklahoma City Thunder. All right, or at the time he was on the Thunder. Obviously, they had Paul George, and then they had a washed-up Carmelo Anthony. Westbrook was somebody that had a great season, won the MVP the year prior, but really helped get that Thunder team to the postseason, although they did lose to the Utah Jazz. 8, Victor Oladipo, Indiana Pacers. He deserves this spot because nobody expected him to blossom into the player he became and carried the Pacers to Game 7 against LeBron James and the Cavaliers. 7th, Anthony Davis. Carried the Pelicans to the postseason without DeMarcus Cousins in 2018 and helped lead the team to a sweep over the Portland Trailblazers. 6, Chris Paul. Chris Paul is this high because he was so important to the Rockets and their success, especially in the 2018 playoffs, and then his injury, you can make a case, cost the Rockets a championship. 5, Giannis Antetokounmpo. He really did have a little bit of a coming out party that year, and then the start of the 18-19 season as well. He was the 2018-19 season MVP, and obviously the season started in 2018. Helped carry the Bucks to the playoffs in the 17-18 season, and they wound up losing in 7 to the Boston Celtics. And really, he did show off a little bit in that series and single-handedly kept the Bucks alive in that series. 4, Stephen Curry. Obviously, Warriors, 3 championships in 4 years. Big shot after big shot, as always. 3, James Harden. Harden obviously was the MVP in the 2017-18 season, carrying the Rockets to a Game 7 with the Warriors, although they lost. And like I said, I know Harden is going to get a lot of criticism because they lost that series, but let's face it, Chris Paul's there, they probably win. So the loss of Chris Paul really hurt, although Harden did win the MVP that season. Number 2, LeBron James, Cleveland Cavaliers. I felt LeBron should have been the MVP that season instead of James Harden because LeBron got a lot out of a worser team. James Harden did have Chris Paul and more talented players on his team. And obviously LeBron had 2 big buzzer beaters in the playoffs, which I'll get to, spoiler alert, in the top 10 games. And he's still LeBron James. And then he left the Cavs to go to the Lakers that summer, and the start of his Lakers career before that injury on Christmas Day was off to a pretty good start as well. And number 1, Kevin Durant, Golden State Warriors, no doubt about it. Finals MVP in 2018, helped carry the Warriors to their second of the back-to-back championships with him. And then obviously their franchise's third championship in a 4-year span. Alrighty. Now I'm going to do my top 10 NBA games of 2018. All right, 10th place I have Celtics Pacers regular season. Victor Oladipo game winner in the regular season. It was in the 2018-19 season. 9th place I have game 1 of the NBA Finals, May 31st, 2018. Warriors win a 10-point game, but that was a game that went to overtime. It'll always be remembered as the J.R. Smith screwed up game by not calling the timeout. So, yeah, that game ended up cracking the list. 8th, Celtics Jazz regular season, March 29th of 2018. Jaylen Brown hits a game-winning shot. 7th place, Pistons Raptors, November 14th of 2018. This is on the list because Reggie Bullock of the Pistons at the time hit a game-winning buzzer beater to have the Pistons upset the Raptors, and obviously the story of that is that Dwayne Casey beat the Raptors. And obviously that was the year the Raptors won the title, but I just thought that was a cool moment for Dwayne Casey. 6th, Bucks Celtics game 1, April 15th of 2018, first round. Game went to overtime. The Celtics won by 5. Giannis Antetokounmpo hit a big three-pointer, I believe, to tie the game, and then Chris Middleton hit a big three-pointer as well. So those two guys really helped the Bucks stay in that game. And 5th place, I have Celtics 76ers game 3 of the second round, May 5th. That was an overtime game. I remember Jason Tatum came up large for Boston that night. 4th place, 76ers Hornets, November 17th, buzzer beater shot by Jimmy Butler on a night where Kemba Walker had a monster game for Charlotte. 3rd place, Rockets Warriors game 4 of the Western Conference Finals, May 22nd. James Harden leads the way for the Rockets with a big win at Golden State. 2nd place, Pacers Cavaliers game 5, April 25th, LeBron James buzzer beater. That shot probably saved the Cavaliers season. If Indiana wins that game, they probably win that series. And then they play the... who would have they played in the second round? The Raptors, and then it would have been Indy, Toronto, and then conference finals would have been Boston against one of those teams. So that's a what if. And then number 1, again, another LeBron buzzer beater, Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, Raptors Cavaliers game 3. The Raptors played very well. They could have stolen game 3, so at least ensured there would be a game 5 back in Toronto. But LeBron James had different ideas as he hit a game-winning bank shot to send the Cavaliers up 3-0 in that series. All right, that's it for today's show. I'll be back tomorrow with my 2016 NHL redraft, my top 10 NHL games and players of 2018, NFL mock draft, what teams should do. I'll recap the Disney sing-along, and we'll preview the Networks Coming Together show for, I believe that is tomorrow night as well. So we'll preview that. Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, and Stephen Colbert will preview that as well. I hope you guys have a great day, everybody.